Good day to everybody in TV land. This is Mike Hittner and Historic Point Basse Update. And today with me on my right, Barb Kleifkin, and on her right, Julie Carlson, and they're Master Gardeners. And we're going to talk a little bit about Master Gardeners and their garden walk they have coming up on July 9th. But to recap a little bit about our Point Basse Pioneer Festival that we just had the 11th and 12th of June, I want to talk a little bit about that. We all know, because we were all there, that it was a very hot day on Saturday. We had a nice turnout, but it kind of died off after 2, 3 o'clock or so, I think probably just because of the heat. But I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, and we had a nice turnout and did a lot of interesting things with a lot of people. And the Master Gardeners had a special presentation. Barb, Julie, you want to tell us a little bit about what you did there? Julie did, I know one thing I saw on Saturday at the school with the students. Julie, you want to tell our listeners what you did?
We had an activity for the children to plant sunflower and morning glory seeds.
And that was kind of nice too, because both morning glory and sunflower, you can see what's happening quickly. You don't have to wait 21 days for these seeds to sprout and come up. And I think with kids, you got to have something that happens quick. I think with all your programs you've worked with children over the years, you know that. I'm sure of that sort of thing. And Barb, you want to talk a little bit about what we did in the Wakely warehouse?
Yeah, we do, as a part of our projects with Point Basse, is that we have this quilt block garden, and as part of that we're trying to introduce quilting and gardening together. And this time we invited someone from our quilt group to do a presentation on quilting at the very beginning of quilting. We always called her the Queen Quilter. Her name is Ardith Hendrickson. And
from Marshfield, wasn't she?
From Marshfield, mm-hmm. Correct. And she had an old-fashioned sewing machine that we had there, and she brought in a bunch of quilts from way back when, along with some quilts from nowadays. And she did some trainings on how she began quilting and how you could begin quilting. And it went over really well.
And they had all different levels. I was for one of the sessions, and they had all different levels of quilting, where you kind of start out and you get more intricate. And for any of our listeners, if you did any quilting, and I think these gals, you gals have quilted, you start fairly simple. You get the kind of hang of it and probably use a machine. They had some of their hand stitched. I can't imagine how many hundreds of hours they spent on these hand stitched quilts, because what is it? Standard is 13 or 15 stitches per inch or something like that, and of course I think in the Wakely's day that's the only way they did it. So I think a lot of these young girls probably were practicing to get that stitch count down, right. Because they made these little samplers and things that they did in those days, and so the Master Gardeners have been a part of Historic Point Basse and a great addition to us for now 3-4 years.
Since 2011.
So 5 years. So yeah, it's been a great addition. They do our heritage garden at the site, and they also do the quilt garden, and now there's a butterfly garden added to that. So that's a really great addition, because before, when we did that ourselves, we kind of failed at doing it ourselves, because we were great at planting, but there's follow through. You have to weed. As these ladies know, they've got that to look forward down to Point Basse, because the weeds grow as faster than the things that you're trying to grow. So, but let's get a little background. Master Gardeners, maybe a lot of you have heard that term, but you don't know exactly what it is, Master Gardeners, and just go with Barb and Julie and find out how they got involved and what they're doing. I know they're doing more than probably Point Basse, because I was just talking to Barb beforehand, and she was working at Vesper and different, rebuilding some gardens there. But Barb, how did you get into Master Gardeners?
I've always been interested in gardening from weeding when I was a kid, although I hated it when I was weeding when I was a kid. But I saw something in the paper about Master Gardeners, and I really didn't have a clue what it was, but you started taking classes. You have to be certified, so you took classes over the winter, and I did that with a friend. I was kind of afraid to just do it by myself.
Did you do it, Barb, after you retired, or were you working?
No, I did this while I was still working.
Oh, really?
I was probably about 10 years before I quit working. And I took the class, and I went to the meetings, and I tried to meet the hours the first year, and for the first couple of years I just never could meet the hours. But I did work at the museum, and I worked at some of the child events and stuff like that. You don't have to make the hours, but you're not certified if you don't make the hours.
To be certified, I think, folks, from year to year, you have to meet a certain minimum amount of hours. On
24 hours.
24 hours on different projects. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but if you're working and trying to do that in between or something, it can add up to be a lot. And of course, one of the components of Master Gardners is educational thing, a component
Right.
which they do down at the historic Point Basse site. But that's one of those things that if you want to get involved, we could probably give out some phone numbers if they want to contact somebody about Master Gardners. Either one of you, maybe they could talk to. And it's one of those things, Julie is working yet, Barb's retired, I'm retired, but it's one of those things you could do while you're working yet, sort of thing, get involved and all those projects you see within the community, Southwood County Historical, a lot of the different plantings in the city and everything, the zoo, a lot of these are all Master Garden projects, and what beautification, what great beauty it adds to our city here, and when you come into our city, you can see all these nice plantings and kept up very nice. I know in the city used to try to do that themselves. Well, after a while it got weedy and they didn't weed it properly and didn't maybe even water it properly, and it didn't look as nearly as good as it now. It looks great, sort of thing. Julie, how did you get into Master Gardner?
I started going on the garden walks. Then I heard about Master Gardeners, and I thought it was a great program, so I took the classes. 2010 I started.
So you've been 6 years already. Yeah.
Yep.
Was it hard to get involved with? From what I see from you ladies, the ones, we've got about 6 or 7 now that come to historic Point Basse. We've had 5, and we've added a couple new in the last year or so. Seems like you have a lot of camaraderie. I think
We do.
it's like us
Great.
guys that are out there Monday working. You kid around and you joke and you talk about this and that, and you kind of, for us anyway, kind of all everyday life kind of melts away, and then you can be in this
Right.
different. It's kind of a zone, I think, or something, and I think it's relaxing. I think that's probably one of the benefits, besides what the beautiful work you do and things. I think is part of just. You're with a group of people, of like-minded people that enjoy doing this, and you just kind of let everything else go for the time being anyway. You may have something at home that's bothering you, or maybe there's a parent or something that isn't well or something, but it kind of all disappears for a while. So I think maybe that's therapeutic in a sense.
Right. We have little picnics, and we
Oh,
go meet
yeah.
at each other's houses during the winter sometimes to do planning, so we really have a good time.
Now, both of you, now 24 hours is the minimum, but can you give me an idea of what kind of hours you actually have? I mean, I'm sure you're way, way, way over that. But
Last year I had 250 some hours.
Julie, about the same
pretty
for you?
close to that, but
Yeah.
not quite, because I'm still working.
Yeah, but
But,
considering the 25 is a minimum, you're going 10 times the minimum, so.
Yep.
So
You
that-
can put as much into it as you're willing.
Right.
Now, is the training at the courthouse? Is that where they do the training for this?
We switch every other year. It's in Marshfield, and then the next year it will be in Rapids.
And is it like a day-long training?
It's at
It-
it's at night.
It's at
A
night?
few hours at night, once a week.
Once a week for like 4 weeks or something like that?
It's usually like about 3 months
3 months?
during the
Oh.
winters.
Pretty
During the winter, so it gets you
expensive, yeah.
prepared for springtime and projects that you might want to
Right.
take. Now, do they hand projects out to you, or do you adopt projects?
You adopt projects.
Yes.
Adopt projects.
We have over 20 different projects in Wood County. Most of them, of course, are in Rapids or Marshfield, but there's many others, Vesper, Rudolph,
We're
all the little
we're kind of
communities.
fortunate actually that your project, Quilt Garden, at the fair didn't pan out so good
Right.
because by them not working so well with you, we kind of inherited it and inherited you folks, which was a great thing for us. But and I think probably the problem, not to say anything against that, is they moved you around too much. And about
Right,
time
right.
you were in one place, then they moved you another place, and I think that can get kind of tiring. And you certainly have expanded ours. But let's talk a little bit, Barb and Julia, about the garden walk. It's usually, 6 or 7 sites. Let you know, folks, that Historic Point Basse is on that this year, and we're very proud to be hosting that at our site, and we'll have the house, the Wakely home open, and also the schoolhouse, because that's where our two gardens are located, the butterfly garden and then the quilt garden by the school, and by the house our heritage garden, which is a vegetable garden. And so we're gonna have both those buildings open. So if you want to come out, people don't have a lot of extra time, but if they want to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to go through the house or the school, they could do that at the same time. Plus, you have a lot of quilts displayed,
Right.
sort of thing. But why don't you tell them about our site? Start with that, Barb, and if
Okay.
you got some, Julie, got some information on the other sites, we can go through that.
We are at garden number 5, so make sure that you get out there by us. We're really excited about it this year. We've tried really hard to get people to come out and see us, and you're gonna really enjoy it. We do a different quilt block every year. We do it with annuals, and then we also have a quilt made just like the quilt block, and that's already done by Apollonia. She's one of our group. And we have invited quilters from different quilt groups to bring their quilts that are like the historical quilts of way back when. So in the 1920s era, that would be the schools, and in the Civil War era for the home and the heirloom garden.
It's kind of nice in a sense that, and also one of your members, Paula Clavine, has a nice scrapbook, so we
Yes.
can see the progress over the years of the different quilt gardens, the coloration and the form of them, and we can see the evolution of things as it's changed.
Right.
So, and that's available for you to look at also. They always bring that out. So,
And the vegetable garden, maybe you want to talk about the vegetable garden.
Well, we being that it's by the main house at Wakely, we use the heirloom vegetable seeds. We try to stay true to the period, and so that includes not using any modern pesticides or fertilizers or anything, but we try to stay as they would
Yeah.
in the
and you've got some huge
In the
tomatoes,
period.
folks. There, I think they're 3 foot high already. Those heirloom tomatoes. I don't know what variety they are, but they're really huge already. And they got Jerusalem artichokes there. They do things, a lot of things, and they got asparagus bed. A lot of different things there that are available. So, and what'll be nice in July, we'll get a good definition of everything. Right now, there's some things like maybe carrots or beets or something that are just starting to come up, and you can see the rows, but you don't get much
Right,
definition.
right.
So, certainly the beans and everything they're starting to climb. I see the tendrils were out the last weekend, and they were starting to climb up. They've got places for them to climb, and they also for the pea vines to climb up. It's an old fence gate, so.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. And with the beans, we've made teepee type old-fashioned things out of tree branches, basically.
Yeah.
So that's gonna turn out pretty good. We did cheat a little bit on the pea vines. We had to use a rabbit guard.
Yeah.
But-
Well, and we've tried in the past to do a Three Sisters garden where we have corn and beans and squash or something together, but it seems like maybe the corn never gets high enough for the
Right.
other things to climb on, and so we're kind of separating them out now to get a better growth of
Right.
them.
Right.
And the Native Americans had what they called the Three Sisters, and we've tried that I think a time or two, and it just seemed like the corn didn't get high enough for the other plants to climb on them or anything like that.
We have to thank Point Basse for everything that they've done for us as far as the compost and the chips that we use to go around our gardens, and the water and the sprinkling system and the seeds from Family Natural Foods.
We've got permission from last year from the DNR to get water out of the river because we didn't have a good source of water, and any of you gardeners know out there, if you don't have water, you're probably not going to have a garden. Not in a climate that we have where you get very warm sometimes and no rain for a week. Now we've been plentiful rain lately, but that changes pretty quick too. So.
Yeah, and there was a time when we were bailing it out of the river, which was really interesting.
We have also wooden barrels. We catch water, but if it doesn't rain for 2 weeks, there's no water in those barrels anymore. So,
Right,
and the river unfortunately is 100 yards away, so it's a little too far to carry a bucket brigade up there.
Right.
If you had 45 members, then each could stand about 3 feet apart and pass the
That would've been
bucket,
nice.
but it doesn't quite work that way when you got 7 or so.
Nope, it's been fun. There's a couple, Apollonia and Annette have been our major gardeners as far as when you mention the tomatoes and the Jerusalem artichokes and things like that. They're the ones that specialize in those kind of gardens. We're trying tobacco again.
Yes.
Hopefully that will work. That's a tough one to plant.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, I think they usually start that, don't they? I don't think you can hardly plant it in the garden.
Well,
You
we're
almost-
trying to plant it in the garden.
Oh,
'Cause
you're
last
trying.
time it was started and it wouldn't
Froze.
take.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and a couple times we had it, I don't know how big it got, but it got big leaves. Of course, we don't use it for tobacco, but it's for demonstration purposes.
right. And then the excess vegetables that we get, we use for the community, the extra community shares
Yes,
program.
and then sometimes if there's some late ones, Tom Bramer, that does, member of Historic Point Basse, does his cast iron cooking class, and sometimes they'll use some things like some squash or something in those recipes, and depends on what's available at that time of year, so.
Yeah, it's worked out really well, actually. They also built us the most awesome fence around our garden.
yes.
Before that, we had I don't know what you want to call it. It was kind of a wattle fence or something, but Boy Scouts had built it. It was great at the time, but it kind of got dilapidated, and so we had to rebuild. So actually, it's a batten board fence sort of thing. So it much more substantial for keeping the rabbits out. And do you get a few snakes in the garden
We had one by the door.
Yep.
by the door? Because we have some snakes around the outhouse area, and I just wonder how far they migrate sometimes.
Well, they migrate over
Yeah,
there.
I think so.
yeah.
We're a tough group, though.
Yeah.
We can handle it.
Yes.
And do you
Keep
have,
the moles.
Barbara or Julie, a list of some of the other sites that are going to be on the garden walk?
Yes, we do. They are going to basically be on the east side of Wisconsin Rapids, in the town of Saratoga, in Nakusa, in Port Edwards.
There's two in Port Edwards. And
Specifically.
Now,
You can do specific.
for the garden tour, my understanding is they can buy their tickets there, or they can buy them in advance. And we buy them in advance at Daily Drugs and D&L Campers, and is there anybody else in town?
One row.
One Rose Greenhouse,
There's a lot of them that sell it, but right offhand, I can't think
you
of.
get them at the county extension office.
County
too.
Extension Office. You can buy the tickets, folks, in advance, which we'd suggest, or you can buy them at the first stop.
Right.
Whatever first stop you go to. If you start at Point Basse, number 5, you can buy tickets there and then go from that point. And most people do a kind of circuit sort of thing with it. And
You don't have to do them in order, but
No.
You
and
just
They're
punch
laid
your
out.
ticket, so
you
that's
punch your
how it-
tickets as you go from
Yep.
place to place. And it's July 9th, which is a Saturday, and it's from 9 to 3:30. So those hours are what's available, and it's rain or shine, because
Yes.
Right.
this is, they pick this date, and you just go with it. And if it's raining a little bit, bring your umbrella, and the gardens look great when they're wet too. So
yeah.
yeah,
We have people at each garden ready to answer questions or help you figure out what a plant is, what kind of growing information you might need if you're interested in growing it yourself.
do the homeowners themselves there? Maybe if they're master gardeners,
Yeah.
but maybe not.
Well,
necessarily.
usually at least one of them will be there,
One
and
of
they're
the
not
homeowners.
usually master gardeners.
Mhm.
They're usually private owners.
Private owners. Now, have you, I would think on a garden walk over the years, you've gotten probably some people that said, hey, I want to join this. They probably like this sort of thing. So it's probably a somewhat of a recruitment tool of some regard.
Yes.
Because Julie kind of said that she started out kind of going on the garden
Yeah.
tours and kind of said, well, I kind of like this and I'd like to learn more about it. And so it's a point
Absolutely.
of starting with it.
Yes, and at every one of our meetings for Master Gardeners, we have education. So we have a 10-hour education certification that we need every year, and they do give us a class. That's not a class like you'd think of it in school, but they'll give us a program that we get to watch or participate in every meeting that we have, which is really fun.
Now, Wood County, through cuts from the state, Terry is retired.
Correct.
Yeah, and she used to be your main contact for years there. Terry was excellent, you know. It's
Right, right.
The interchange I had with her over the years was excellent. Do we have a new one that takes that
Not yet.
place yet, or
Not yet.
not yet? And probably maybe will be a part-time person, or maybe.
I think she or he will be spread thinner.
Oh, they'll
Because
take
they're-
other duties, and this will be part of their duties,
Right.
where Terry was more the horticulturalist or whatever.
And she had less counties to cover. Now they're going to have more.
Yeah, I think the state, tell your state legislators actually that, they're not doing anybody a favor by doing that. These are the people that help you with your, not only your gardens, but with your lawns and this sort of thing, that when they cut this too thin, these people can't cover the areas, and then when you call up for some assistance sometime, maybe they'll be there next week or the week after, because they might be up in Portage County or some other place trying to cover that part of it too. So they saved a little money, but in the long run, I think it'll probably be more
Right.
expensive for us.
This is part of that cut by the whole university system.
Oh, okay.
that
This is one that got passed down right through.
Right, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And now, in a lot of times, since we're not at Point, though, we've got mid-state here, we'll start to feel, at least through the horticultural agent or whatever.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll miss Terry. She was a big help.
That was Terry Lessig, wasn't it? Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. So, anything else about Master Gardeners or about the garden walk you'd like to?
Well, I did want to mention that if you are handicapped or it's harder for you to get around, at least at Point Basse, and I'm sure they'll do stuff at other places, we'll be allowing people to drive to the other garden, because the historical vegetable garden is quite a distance away from the
Yeah, we're probably
block.
close
maybe.
to probably a quarter mile or somewhere close to that. So you can drive up and look at the school one, and then if you want, you can walk over there, but we encourage you to see the Heritage Garden. So if you feel more comfortable, you can drive over there. I mean, it's not a problem. It's a dead-end road, and there's not any traffic to speak on, and you could park on, either side of the road and just leave enough room so they can turn around. So that's probably the most spread out site. Most of these are a homeowner, and they have a garden in the side yard, backyard, or maybe all around their yard. Most people that are into this are really, plantings are all over. They're not just in one specific area. So you'll be able to drive here, because it'll be better. And if you're handicapped, certainly, we can probably provide some assistance to help you get to the garden and everything. Both gardens, the Quill Garden is right off the circle drive up by the schoolhouse, but our Heritage Garden is probably 150 feet, I suppose, from the road or something to that effect. But it's pretty flat through there. I mean, we got a little bit of a rolling terrain, but that area seems to be fairly flat for most of it. So.
Also, I think people would like to know that Point Basse provides a program for the school children every year, where they bring them back into the past and let them play games and sit in the schoolhouse and find out what it was like to go to school back then. And we also participate in that too, with a sensory type garden
Right.
for the kids.
And for probably the last 2 years, the Master Gardeners have been a part of that, and we hope to expand that starting this fall, with them being more involved with the lower grades also. And right up to this point, it's been mostly 3rd or 4th grade, and we'd like to get it down into the 1st and 2nd graders, because actually the earlier we can teach these children about gardening and gardens and the importance of it and the pleasure of it and all that sort of thing, I think it's better for all of us in our whole community basis. So we'd like to encourage you again, the Master Gardeners Garden Walk. It'll be on Saturday, July 9th from 9 to 3:30, and it encompasses Port Edwards, Saratoga, Wakely site, which is in the town of Saratoga. Now you can look on County Trunk Z. You got a beautiful sign. We'll mark it out on the marquee on the junction of 73 and Z, and then we also got a sign on the corner of Wakely Road and Z. Will have that all marked for you about the Master Gardener's Garden Walk, and so you can just follow the arrows from there, and easy to find. I think that sign on the Z is going to be a great attribute for us, because I think a lot of times in the past people have drove through and get down to Devil's Elbow and they find they're a little bit too far, sort of thing. So I'd like to thank Barb Kleifke and Julie Carlson for joining me today on Historic Point Basse Update, and thank you for all you do at Historic Point Basse, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.